This is an offense unlike any other in this country or state has ever seen. Not just the number of children who died, but the way the defendant killed them, the amount of research and planning and preparation that went into it, and the way he carried it out. The picking and choosing of who would die. The video of the shooting doesn't have audio, but you will have no trouble interpreting the defendant's demeanor as he kills people and kids in that school.
From disturbing audio to chilling testimony, the prosecution makes their case to the judge on why the Oxford high school shooter should spend the rest of his life in prison without parole for the deadly mass shooting that killed 4 and injured 7 in November 2021. Welcome to CBS News Detroit at 5. I'm Jeff Skaversky.
I'm Shayna Humphreys. The court has adjourned in Oakland County for day 1 of the shooter's Miller hearing. This kind of court proceeding is required for any juvenile defendant who has been charged as an adult to be considered for a life in prison sentence without any chance for parole.
Andres Gutierrez has been following the case all day. We join him live tonight outside the Oakland County Circuit Courthouse in Pontiac. Andres.
Jeff, going into this hearing, we knew the state was going to get into some granular details of the tragedy. In doing so, we heard some graphic testimony of the shooter's violent thoughts leading up to the massacre. In fact, this afternoon, they played an audio clip that can be characterized as the shooter's manifesto. Take a listen.
There's no voices in my head. The voices are me. I am the voices. I am arguing with myself back and forth. I have 3 constant voices, and then there's me physically. And I'm doing whatever those 3 voices tell me to do, and one of them is always coming up on top. And that's the one that's taken over. That's what people call the demons. There are no demons. I am the demon. You are the demon. In turn, there is a demon in everyone that is the voice. The demon will take over.
Now, as you heard off the top, the day began with Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald referring to the shooter as an offender like no other, pointing out how he methodically planned out the attack and was willing to spend the rest of his life in prison. Then the chief investigator of this case, Lieutenant Timothy Willis with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, testified for more than 2 hours detailing the 22-page journal belonging to the shooter that was found in a bathroom stall. Lieutenant Willis also described how the shooter romanticized torture, wanting to torture children, but then actually physically torturing baby birds because they're so helpless.
You've been an officer for a very long time. You ever seen anything like this?
Never. It's obviously the torture's disturbing enough. The commentary throughout, the inflection, the knowing, the prior passages and the enjoyment this brings the defendant is, you can't put it into words.
Now, the day did wrap up with an Oxford teacher in the witness stand who was really characterizing the terrifying moment she experienced when the shooter was trying to aim to her head so he could fire a bullet. Now, the court wrapped up here just around 4 o'clock. It will resume tomorrow morning at 8:30. In the meantime, let's go ahead and toss it over to my colleague, Kelly Vaughn, with the Oakland County Sheriff.
Well, Andres, a lot of what you were saying you heard in court, it was hard to hear, and that's what the sheriff's office, you guys have been dealing with this for years at this point. How has that impacted you and the office?
Well, I mean, everything that you're hearing today and it's starting to come out has been running through the minds of all of our people for every minute of every day since this tragedy happened. All the terrible details, the manifestos, his articulation and cold-hearted nature of his intent and excitement about killing people. That's just something that's hard to wrap your head around. And for our people, as they responded to that scene and then got deeper into it and saw all this and had to deal with the trauma of those folks, it's affected them to their core. And obviously everybody in the community, obviously first and foremost everybody in the building and families and friends and relatives and Ripples and Oxford and beyond. It's a terrible, terrible thing.
And, this hearing, it's regarding his sentencing. Do you have any opinions on what his sentence should be?
100%. He needs to, in my opinion, go away for the rest of his life. You talk about rehabilitative capabilities. He very clearly spoke that he knew what he's doing. He knew the consequences of his acts. He intended to live the rest of his life in prison as a result of it and didn't care. He intended to kill people in a brutal, just horrible way. And all of those things add up that, he knew what he was doing. He knew the difference between right and wrong. Even at that age, you can formulate right and wrong. And clearly, he not only formulated it, he articulated he was willing to go to prison for the rest of his life to do this. I say we oblige him.
All right, thank you so much for that insight. We'll send it back to you all in the studio.
Kelly Vaughn, as well as Andres Gutierrez, continuing our team coverage from Pontiac today as the Oxford High School shooter's Miller hearing concludes day one. Thank you both, and Sheriff Bouchard as well.
Now let's bring in two attorneys who have been following the Miller hearing with us all day. Defense attorneys Terry Johnson as well as Lillian Diallo. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
So we're going to provide some insight here. Judge Rowe will not make a decision today, but have we heard enough from the Oxford High School shooter in those chilling, disturbing audio tapes today to say, you know what, send him away for the rest of his life without an opportunity for parole?
I don't think at this point, again, there's another side that has to be presented. And this hearing is not about innocence or guilt. This hearing is about how much time that this individual is going to go to prison for, whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, or the rest of his life. That's all this is about. So if we pull the emotion out and we look at the factors that have to be determined in the Miller hearing, we still haven't heard all of those at this point. We have not heard about we heard a little bit about the family side, which is a factor, the familiar environment, but we have not heard about his psychological, rehabilitative opportunities. So at this point, I don't believe the prosecution has met their burden. I think they're on their way, but I don't think they've met their burden at this point.
And Lillian, could you elaborate on those factors as you're listening today? Are you hearing enough, or what do you think still needs to be argued?
They're going to need their experts. Defense is going to need their experts to come and try to rebut the presumption, right, that he should not spend the rest of his natural life in a prison cell. It's difficult, right, and it's very emotional, and I understand it's just the sentencing phase that we're talking about, but these are real people that have died, right? So it's hard to take some of that emotion out. I'm going to keep my mind open until we hear from the defense and all sides. But it was pretty heinous, and it was pretty well thought out. And that wasn't the only crime he had thought out in advance.
Yeah, and it seems so calculated. I mean, he kept saying over and over in these tapes, these audio tapes that we saw today on TV, that he has to teach the world and change the world, and he is a demon that's going to teach us. I mean, what leads you to believe that there is some sort of potential other side here that he can be rehabilitated?
Well, again, I'm not a medical expert, but I will say the following. I much like Ms. Diallo, I want to hear. I want to hear from someone who can say, yes, he can, or no, he can't, and why. Right now, he obviously had lots of family problems. If you listen to the testimony today, things came out that the family paid more attention to the horses than they did to this kid. This kid was begging for help, and he didn't get it. All kind of issues going on there. So at this point, I can't answer the question of what needs to be said on the psychological side, but I would love to hear what they have to say.
With the family in mind and the rare, unprecedented charges that have been filed against the shooter's parents, does that complicate Judge Rowe's decision? The fact that there is an argument, there is a case out there suggesting some of this blame should be shared with the shooter's parents?
No, it doesn't complicate his decision, because that is a factor that, actually, in essence, helps the shooter in this particular case, that there were some issues with the family. I mean, if he came from a loving home and there's never been any issues, at that point, that's one of the factors that would not work in his favor in terms of life without the possibility of parole. But right now, as it stands, the family not caring, not being interested, having all of, I mean, he being the shooter also said there was lots of fighting in front of him, there was not any money, he wasn't getting any love. those are the kind of things that actually go to help him towards his quest for a probationable sentence down the road.
Just to take that a little bit further, even if it can be proven that the parents got him to the place where he is today, where he did commit these crimes, does that necessarily change anything for him? He did still arrive at that place.
It'll be a mitigating factor, right? However, the parents' involvement, I think, should be a little bit more in for a penny, in for a pound. They should have been charged right with what he was, with what the young man was charged with, right? There is, in no world could this have happened without the enabling. They didn't see what was going on with their own child under their own roof. And what do? You get him a gun, you take him to the shooting range, you encourage him to be deceitful, right? You don't care about any of those things. And then that text that did it for me, don't do it. Don't do what? What had you talked about? What had he talked about in front of you? Don't do what?
Defense attorneys Terry Johnson and Lillian Diallo, thank you for being here with us here on this very difficult day. Both of you will be back here tomorrow providing more insight as the hearing continues to unfold.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will have continuing coverage throughout the evening tonight, and our Gavel to Gavel stream resumes tomorrow morning at 8:30. You can watch us all day long on CBSNewsDetroit.com or the CBS News app.
And coming up in the next weather forecast, skies are clear for now, but we have another day, another chance for strong to severe storms in the next 24 hours. We're looking back at yesterday and what else is still to come to end our week. That's ahead.
When you get proven quality at lower than low prices with Kroger brand products, it feels like you're winning. Find the proven quality you love at lower than low prices with Kroger brand products. Only at Kroger. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
To go to the heart of stock car racing, you'll need to go to the heart of the stock car, where a history of high speed roars to life. And a passion for good times fuels it all weekend long. Where kids can be kids, and adults can be too. It's anything but slow at Michigan International Speedway. Come be a part of the action. Get your tickets now at mispeedway.com.
Want a tighter, flatter tummy and the hottest deal of the year? Then check out new Ab EX from Sono Bello.
After my pregnancies, my body just never bounced back. I had this stomach overhang that made me self-conscious.
Emotionally, it was really sad. Feeling good up here, but you look down and you don't.
After having my babies, it went in different direction. From here, it went to here, and I just couldn't get rid of that.
Introducing Ab EX from Sono Bello. Remove fat and lose excess skin permanently in just one visit.
I got the tummy tuck results without the tummy tuck downtime.
And I finally got the flat stomach I wanted.
I'm able to get back in my size 8 jeans. I feel sexy. I feel confident.
But it feels good to feel good and look good.
Schedule your free no-obligation consultation now and find out how to get your dream body on your budget with our best offer of the year. Call or go to sonobello.com and get exclusive access to our employee-only pricing.
News Detroit at 5. We had a 1-2 punch of severe weather yesterday that rolled through Metro Detroit, and now you're tracking another risk of severe weather coming tomorrow.
Sorry, and I just noticed an update that came in off of my weather service thing over there. It was a confirmation I was waiting for. So, and I believe, well, I'll double check the number here in a second, but it's a tornado survey report that was coming on in from Jackson County that looked like it had started to intersect a little bit with Livingston. So let's jump into that actually real quick. I'm going to go check over on this while the radar is up. It does appear that the last update, I can swing over here and check. Yes. Okay, so technically we had a tornado touchdown in a very small section, 500 yards. That's all we got. In Livingston County, out just obviously east of the Stockbridge area. So the Stockbridge area had 2 separate touchdowns yesterday afternoon after about 2:39 in the afternoon. That second touchdown, the one around 2:47, moved its way just about 500 yards across the Livingston County line and then it ended. So technically there was a touchdown there on that far western side. Now there's been a lot of issues with some of the stuff going further forward with it, right? There's been a lot of reports for different damage around much of the area. See, this is that pin right here that moved into Livingston County. So again, a very strong area of rotation that we were having to deal with there. Damaged paths that you can see that go through areas around Southfield and especially out toward Grosse Pointe Farms. Both areas very heavily hit. Another large area out near Redford and Livonia, and you had several spots out near Ann Arbor as well. So quite a few spots dealing with very intense wind, along with some small areas of rotation. A funnel cloud confirmation for Grosse Pointe Farms. That was confirmed by the National Weather Service earlier, but they haven't given any confirmation on if anything touched down. But there was a funnel cloud over Grosse Pointe Farms when a lot of that damage did occur. So a couple things that we're looking at when it comes to that. Now, the bigger thing here going forward as well is what comes next, because we still have a risk for strong to severe storms going into tomorrow night. There are two small parts here that we have to look at. The first is going to be where that heat and humidity really has a chance to try and build on in, right? So we've got that chance to add a little bit more right there. But we get into Saturday, and you can see that scattered storm risk, it's the morning only. There are two rounds that we have to look at tomorrow. So the first of which comes on in right here. So we get into tomorrow morning, and it's pretty easy going. Showers and this large area, that large area of just severe cells, it's something called an MCS. That breaks apart. And as it moves on in, we are mainly dry. But this line right here, think of it like the exhaust. There's a magic trick that you can think of if you want to, that right after a candle is blown out, the little wisp of smoke, you can actually light it again, and it relights the candle. Similar setup with this. The whole thing dies out, and then the last little wisp comes up into our warm air and then reignites. And that's what we have to look at right here in the early afternoon, around noon to 1 o'clock. But that should move its way out very quickly and impact mainly areas in Windsor all the way through parts of Ontario. The second one going well toward 3 or 4 a.m. on Saturday. Heavy rain, yes. Wind, we're going to have to wait and see.
We'll be standing by. Thank you, Ahmed. Former Michigan Republican gubernatorial candidate Ryan Kelly pleaded guilty to a federal crime today in connection to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol back in 2021. Kelly pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor count of entering and remaining on restricted grounds, admitting that he motioned in a way to encourage others to follow him. He did not say that he engaged in any violence. Kelly ran for governor in Michigan back in 2022 as a Republican. He was arrested last June and ultimately lost the primary to Tudor Dixon. A judge accepted Kelly's plea deal, and his sentencing is set for October 17th.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed 2 bills banning conversion therapy for minors, a discredited practice intended to change someone's sexual orientation. The bills make it illegal now for mental health professionals in Michigan to use conversion therapy on minors. Punishment includes losing your license. Michigan is now the 22nd state in the country to ban the practice, with the ban taking effect come October.
The Oakland County Board of Commissioners approved a plan today to revitalize Pontiac, promising to bring hundreds of jobs to the downtown area. The plan was passed in an 11-5 vote and involves the county taking over the Ottawa Towers and the old GM building, as well as the lease on the parking structure with the old Phoenix Amphitheater. The venue, which has not hosted a show since 2011, would be torn down as part of the project. At least one of the Ottawa Towers properties would be turned into a central business district hub, with as many as 600 city workers being moved there.
Coming up on CBS News Detroit at 5, the Oxford High School shooter is in court for a Miller hearing to determine if he's eligible for life in prison without parole. Coming up, we will speak with 2 judges to understand what factors Judge Rowe might be considering at the hearing before he makes a ruling on whether or not the teen should be eligible for parole. Stay with us.
The Oxford High School shooter and the hearing that will help determine his fate. We'll take you inside the courtroom as it happens with live CBS News Detroit team coverage and expert legal analysis. Tomorrow morning starting at 9, streaming live on the CBS and Pluto TV apps.
I have a curiosity and a hunger for knowledge. I want to understand what is happening and figuring out how to communicate that and how to tell the most important stories in a compelling way. I love that that's a part of my everyday job.
You're thinking about replacing the windows and doors in your home. But first, you want to know, what's it going to cost? Today, I'm here with Sarah from Renewal by Andersen.
Getting a price from us is easy. Make an appointment, And then we'll come out to your home, do an inspection inside and out. And then you pick your styles, your colors. It's really fun. And we give you a price that's good for an entire year.
Wow, no pressure. I bet people love that. And replacing just a patio door can make a big difference?
A huge difference, absolutely. Andersen builds their patio doors to help eliminate drafts and easily open and close in any weather.
They're really beautiful too. How about the security of your doors?
A lot of break-ins happen through patio doors, so we take it very seriously. Choose one of our gliding doors and you won't need that wooden stick anymore. And some of our hinge patio doors have a 5-point locking system.
Wow, that's great. And now, what about your warranty?
We have the nation's best warranty. It covers your windows, doors, and the installation. Some companies won't cover all three.
Do you guys do anything other than windows and doors?
We don't. Other companies do roofing, siding, windows. But what's that saying? Jack of all trades, master of none?
Yeah.
Our expertise is windows and patio doors. And we have the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies.
Wow, that's really impressive. And you're a local company.
That's right. We live here, we raise our kids here, and if we run into you at the grocery store, we're not going to run the other way because we're really proud of the products that we sold you.
It's Renewal by Andersen's BOGO 50 Bonanza. Buy one window, patio door, or entry door and get the next one 50% off. That's 50% off. Plus, pay nothing for a year. Our BOGO 50 Bonanza ends July 29th. For a free appointment, call 248-951-9955.
Welcome back. The Oxford High School shooter is back in court as an Oakland County Circuit judge hears arguments in a Miller hearing.
Now, this is a special hearing for minors, a result of the 2012 Supreme Court ruling, Miller v. Alabama, that said mandatory life sentences without the chance of parole are unconstitutional for minors. At the hearing, the prosecution presents evidence and testimony they believe amounts to exceptional circumstances and makes the minor eligible for life without parole.
Once both sides call all of their witnesses and make their arguments, the judge will decide. Here with us now are 36th District Court Judge Kenneth King and retired 3rd Circuit Judge Vonda Evans. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Can you start with telling us from the judge's perspective, how does this differ, a Miller hearing from a criminal trial? What needs to be proved?
Well, first of all, because this is a very unique hearing, there is science that says that a juvenile's brain has not completely formed. So there is a rebuttable presumption that the prosecution has to show that he shouldn't have life without parole. So at this hearing, the prosecution bears what we call the burden. They go first, showing why he should have life without parole. And that's why they go first, because it's their burden. If they fail to give notice to the defense, then you automatically can have to sentence him to a term of years, 25 to 40 on the low end, with the maximum not to exceed or no less than 60 years. So it's a notice situation, and basically what they're saying is, listen, you can't do juveniles the way that you do adults. So essentially what the Supreme Court has done is done away with the cookie cutter approach, whereas we sentence everybody, regardless if they're an adult or a juvenile, to first-degree murder, premeditated without the possibility of parole, life without the possibility of parole. So now we consider factors in determining if this juvenile, if there's some hope for them, if they can be rehabilitated, or if they should in fact be sentenced to first-degree murder, premeditated, and do the rest of their life in jail without the possibility of parole. And what you have with adults, you don't get to hear all of that. It's mandatory. Here, the judge has to look at a number of factors, age, maturity, but the most important is irreparable corruption. Hey, throw him away, he's garbage, you can't do anything with him. This young man has no prior record, and there's significant evidence that there was a mental health issue that the parents did not see about. So it's a lot, and that judge has to make that finding. Yeah, so the tricky thing though is determining whether or not, if this person is released after a number of years, if they still pose a danger to the community.
And I think the prosecution is trying to lay out a case addressing each of those factors that the judge is supposed to consider. They're trying to show that this person has an insatiable thirst for violence. And they've done that by reviewing his diary and messages that he sent to other people about what he's done in the past in terms of killing birds, and how his plan was well thought out, and he pretty much followed it to the T in terms of how he was going to kill and what was going to happen. The research that went into, if I get convicted of first-degree murder premeditated, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to do life in prison? Well, yeah, I can do that. So it looks like he really thought about his consequences before he took the actions that he took.
So when you hear what you heard today, you heard those audio tapes the day before this deadly mass shooting. I mean, he was well thought out, and even though his brain may not be developed at the age of 15, he seems very calculated here, as if he knows what he's doing, in the sense that he's believing he could change the world here. So did you hear enough today to say he deserves a life sentence without parole?
Well, keep in mind, we've only heard one part of this hearing so far, the prosecution, and they've done their job so far. And I think they have a lot more witnesses to come forward, but they've painted a picture that this is a very troubled kid, but a very dangerous kid as well. And this kid, there's no saving this kid, that we should sentence him to life without the possibility of parole.
And you know, you said, well, you know, there's no brain development. There is science that says the part of judgment in your brain to really think about it and not act on it doesn't develop till you're 20. So what we have to be able to do is, this is first-degree murder, okay? So it's not like it's second-degree murder. Premeditation, deliberation, yes, those are elements. He's pled guilty to them. But what you have to do, they're balancing factors. It's just not one thing. Okay? You have to look at his age, family and home environment, circumstances of the homicide offense, transient immaturity or irreparable corruption, and the possibility of rehabilitation. There's just not one thing. We know, hands down, beyond a shadow of a doubt, this was a terrible situation. People lost their lives and were seriously injured. That's not the issue here, and I think everybody can agree that's not. It's the issue is, what do we do with this person as a result of what this heinous crime that he's committed?
Anybody that was viewing the people's case that they laid out today would be enraged, and their hearts really go out to the victims, the families of these victims. And their case is pretty compelling, though, when you think about, like Judge said, it was well thought out. It appears though he weighed the consequences, and that he researched on Google what is the maximum penalty I can get in Michigan. And he even told us what he was going to do, who he was going to shoot first. I wanted to shoot a pretty girl, and then so she could suffer like I suffered. So he's crying out, and he even indicated that as well, that if they just sent me to the office, maybe I could get some help. So those are the kinds of things that the judge is going to have to weigh in making his decision. Is this a kid that can be helped? Or is this a kid that is just so dangerous that it's a risk putting him back out on the street at some time in the future?
And what's really interesting is the Miller v. Alabama case is that particular young man was resentenced to natural life without the possibility of parole. But so many people who have been in prison are now free because of this case. Right. So it's not like because you commit a crime like this, you automatically go to prison for life. There are a number of people through these hearings that have been shown to say, listen, you know what, 45 years, 50 years, 60 years, it's enough. You deserve an opportunity to be back in the community.
I always like to use the analogy of that person who participates in a crime as an aider and abettor and the lookout. And the person goes in, another person goes in and shoots and kills someone. But because you're an aider and abettor, and the aiding and abetting law says any amount of aid or assistance you give another in the commission of the crime, you're just as guilty as if you pulled the trigger. But if we take a step back and look at a juvenile in that role as being the aider and abettor, and that person, let's say that person was an adult that went in and shot and killed someone, do we really want to sentence that juvenile to life in prison without the possibility of parole for being the lookout, for making an immature decision that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives.
Well, Judge King and Judge Evans, thank you so much for your time today. It really helps to understand exactly what Judge Rowe is facing and what he has to consider here. Of course, we do have another day, possibly multiple days left in this case, and our coverage will continue. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much for asking us to be here.
We will have continuing coverage throughout the night, and our Gavel to Gavel stream resumes tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. You can watch us all day on CBSNewsDetroit.com or on the CBS News Detroit app. We're right back after this.
This is not Big Brother. People are coming for blood, and it's gonna get ugly.
The Challenge USA is back August 10th on CBS.
You are not in Kansas anymore.
CBS Reality Titans.
This is really a redemption season for me.
Battle it out with legends of the Challenge franchise.
Once I get an opportunity to take these bets out, I am gonna take it.
Who has what it takes to win the ultimate prize of $500,000?
Let's get to this money!
The Challenge USA. New season premieres Thursday, August 10th on CBS.
If you or a loved one were diagnosed with ovarian cancer after using Johnson & Johnson baby powder products, you may be entitled to a large cash settlement. Call Saddle Rock Legal Group now. Johnson & Johnson knew their products could cause ovarian cancer, but kept the product on the shelf until 2020. Juries have already awarded cancer victims billions of dollars in compensation. You must call to file a claim as soon as possible.
Call 1-800-779-33.
You lived or worked at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina for at least 30 days from August 1953 through December 1987 and have been diagnosed with cancer, neurobehavioral effects, fertility issues, or more. You may qualify for financial compensation. A new law passed by Congress now allows veterans and survivors to seek damages for harm from exposure to contaminated water at Camp Lejeune. Call Saddle Rock Legal Group to discuss your case now.
Call 1-800-540-7070.
Checking in on weather now after an eventful 24 hours, and it seems the next 24 hours are going to be a little interesting as well. Next weather meteorologist Ahmed Badji joins us now with the latest.
It just doesn't seem like we can catch much of a break, right? With today, we've got the heat and humidity starting to build. Mid-80s is not all that bad, but you can definitely feel the air outside. It's thick. We've got our live look here from our tower cam over a much more beautiful Southfield than yesterday. 80s still holding on, climbing still a little bit further before we start to cool on down for tonight. Here's the other side of things. We do have a severe storm risk for tomorrow. There are two timelines for it. Based on the models right now, which, to be completely honest, are not doing really well. So yesterday ended up lining up as expected. So we're going to roll with that confidence into this one. There is a risk going into the very early afternoon, and there's another risk late tomorrow night, almost around 3 a.m. on Saturday. So that's what we have to look at when it comes to this potential highlight. The thing that plays for it is we've got a lot of fuel for storms tomorrow. The thing that plays against it is it's very hot, and that helps to try and hold it back a little bit. We're going to break that down hour by hour and also kind of show you some of the risks before we calm down next week. That's coming up.
Calm down. That sounds great. Thanks, Ahmed.
Last night's storms ripped through southeast Michigan. Crews and homeowners are now left to clean up the damage. At a local business in Southfield, enormous trees fell onto the building and crushed multiple cars. Crews have been at the site picking up the mess. And in Redford Township, 2 cars in the driveway were destroyed and power lines collapsed. A resident is still in shock at the destruction in her front yard, despite some of the damage, as you can see here, throughout Metro Detroit. And that one resident we're speaking of, well, she is grateful the damage was not worse.
Things were hitting the house, debris was flying, everything was pretty much going horizontal. The rain was horizontal, everything, and we just saw trees, branches coming down, flying down. Garbage cans were rolling down the street. It could have been a lot worse, but everything's okay. We still have a house, and we still have our health.
DTE officials and fuel crews say they are working around the clock to restore power as quickly as possible and as safely as they can.
And all those downed trees and power lines have left tens of thousands in the dark across Metro Detroit. Around 150,000 DTE customers remain without power as of now, though that number was close to 200,000 just a few hours ago. So progress is being made. At last check, more than 93,000 were without power in Wayne County. There are more than 30,000 outages in Washtenaw, another 13,000 in Oakland, and about 6,000 in Macomb County. DTE says they expect most service will be restored by the end of Saturday, but in the meantime, they're setting up community centers and having vans deliver ice to those at the highest risk. Now, cooling centers are open across Metro Detroit, offering some relief from the heat and humidity, the poor air quality, and now these power outages on top of it. Centers are open in Detroit, Ann Arbor, Dearborn, Farmington Hills, Southfield, Livonia, and Westland, as well as other sites across Wayne and Washtenaw counties. For a full list of those cooling center locations, head over to cbsdetroit.com.
Michiganders will have a new way to see how court judges are sentencing felonies in the state.
Our Elle Myers got a look at a new dashboard the Michigan Supreme Court hopes will help enhance transparency in court. She has the story from Lansing.
The Michigan Supreme Court is beginning work to enhance transparency in felony convictions. The highest court in Michigan announced this week they're creating a dashboard to showcase the felony convictions of court judges.
The idea behind the dashboard is to create transparency in felony sentencing in a way that folks at home could slice and dice the data the way that they want. And so they could compare different judges and how they sentence in felony cases.
The dashboard will allow people to look at criteria like race, gender, and age, among other factors.
This is all in the Supreme Court's effort to dramatically increase transparency. At the Supreme Court, we're mindful of the fact that we're the branch of government that doesn't have a big checkbook or police cars with jails. And so our currency in society is the trust and confidence that people have in the courts.
The idea for this new dashboard came out of work from the Citizens for Racial Equity in Washtenaw, also called CREW, that noted a circuit court judge was giving longer sentences depending on race. Boyd tells me the Michigan Supreme Court did not find evidence of bias. Members of CREW did not respond to an interview request on Thursday.
And that group, very smart, very well-intentioned folks, really didn't have access to the same kind of data that we have access to. And so it was with the seed of their report as the idea for going forward. And
now it'll still be a little while before you can actually pull up data on this dashboard. Boyd tells me it could be 1.5 to 2 years before this dashboard is up and running. For now, reporting in Lansing, I'm Elle Myers, CBS News, Detroit.
There's still a little confusion around today after Hunter Biden's plea deal fell apart and threw his whole criminal case into uncertain waters.
The president's son was supposed to plead guilty yesterday to misdemeanor charges for failing to pay taxes, but the judge put the brakes on that agreement, raising concerns about its structure and terms.
Joining us now to take a deeper look into all of this is criminal defense attorney and former U.S. Assistant Prosecutor Richard Convertino. Thanks for being with us today,
Thank you.
Richard. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So tell us the concerns that the judge had with this whole deal. Why did it all fall apart?
Well, I read the plea agreement, the Rule 11 plea agreement. It's called such because it's under Rule 11 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. I read through that carefully. I read the diversion agreement as well. And the little I could glean from the judge is basically she's just over officious. I think the judge kind of didn't do her duty and proceed with the plea as it should have been. The plea is, we talked about this last time I was here about the plea, which is very, very favorable plea. It's incredibly favorable. I've never, in my years as a prosecutor, I've never had a federal diversion case. The diversion case is a gun case, and the gun case is based upon Hunter Biden's possession and ingestion of crack cocaine over a period where he says it occurred every 15 minutes in his life, and he purchased a gun, lied on the ATF form, and then was caught with the gun. That's a very serious offense, and that's a 10-year offense. And so to get a diversion for that is absolutely unheard of. The other thing that was very unusual with that plea agreement was that the gun offense, which is the most serious as far as his liberty interest goes, the gun offense was not to be used as other bad acts or acts that could be used in the sentencing of his guilty plea. which would have enhanced his sentencing guidelines had that been used. So that specifically was carved out, and the judge was unable to use that in the sentencing guidelines. So it was a very, very favorable plea. But the judge, I think, had no basis to question the plea at that point in time and withdraw, and have the parties withdraw from the plea. It's as if somebody were charged with a probation violation. So somebody who's out on probation or parole, probation in the federal system, and they violate the terms of their probation. The prosecutor doesn't have the right just to sweep that person up off the street through the law enforcement agencies that they use and stick them in a prison. They have to go before a judge. The judge decides on the facts whether or not that person actually violated the terms of his or her probation. And that's the same way that that this plea would have been with the diversion. That's what called for the judge to say, no, I'm not going ahead. I don't have a right to judge whether Hunter Biden had ever violated the terms of the diversion agreement. And that's what broke it down.
Just how rare, though, is this in a situation where the government has a deal with a defendant here?
How rare that it breaks down in court?
Yeah, where a judge says, I don't think so.
It's pretty rare, and the reason it's rare is many judges determine what type of plea they'll accept under the terms of Rule 11, whether they have say in the sentencing or not, whether the terms of the agreement, the sentencing agreement between the prosecutor and the defense attorney must be upheld by the judge. That's one form of a plea. The other form of a plea, which is in this case what happened, was that the prosecution says this is what we believe the sentence should be. The defendant in this case agreed, but they put in the terms of the Rule 11 plea agreement, if the judge believes that the sentence should depart upward or downward, the judge ruling will hold the day. And so that was, I'm not sure why the judge didn't go ahead with the plea agreement. She just, I think, was just, like I said, overly officious. She was too involved in the proceeding. I think that there was nothing that wasn't agreed to fully, and they should have gone ahead. And they will. I think they will go ahead with this plea agreement.
How much of a role do you think politics played in this whole thing, from the investigation to the charges to the plea deal falling apart?
I think it was an enormous impact on the plea. There was misdemeanor tax case is very rare. Although I had one when I was a defense attorney, I represented someone. I got them. They were indicted in a felony tax case, and I got a plea of a misdemeanor. So that does happen on occasion. But the gun charge is very unusual. That's a serious offense. If you can imagine someone who is under the influence of crack cocaine, and by his own admission, ingesting it every 15 minutes. Smoking crack every 15 minutes, goes into a gun shop, lies on an ATF form, says he's not involved, doesn't have any addictions, doesn't use cocaine or any other substance, purchases the gun, gets caught with the gun about a week later in his car, then disposes of the gun, throws it in a garbage can after you try and get rid of the evidence. That's a serious offense in any federal district in the United States. And so to have that serve as a diversion, which, and under the terms of his diversion program, it would be 2 years without any offenses, without any violations, and then the charge is as if it never happened. It's totally dismissed. And in fact, he can go purchase another gun, which wouldn't happen normally in the federal system if there was a conviction.
Still a lot more to unfold here in the Hunter Biden case. We will keep the developing news coming at you here on CBS News Detroit. Former U.S. Assistant Prosecutor Richard Convertino, thank you for being with us here tonight.
Thanks.
And coming up in that next weather forecast, we still have some heat for tonight. Upper 60s tomorrow, heading for the 90 mark before storms return. We're going to break down that next round of weather coming up. Check this out.
Thank you for joining us for CBS News Detroit.
CBS News Detroit is everywhere.
We've got R2D2 here. Say hello. Perfect. Give me a hug.
Okay, yeah.
Good morning, Detroit. CBS Detroit.
We all appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Let's take a look at the forecast here.
Such a great story from Ibrahim.
I wanted to be one of those positive stories.
CBS News Detroit.
We are streaming on the CBS News app and Pluto TV.
Get a look at that.
CBS News what? Detroit.
Fresh produce is the best produce. That's why at Kroger, we invest in local farmers to bring you the freshest seasonal picks. So no matter how you shop, your local produce always tastes as fresh as it gets. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Multiple phlebotomies or withdrawals of blood due to too many red blood cells? If so, you may qualify for the Verify study. Doctors in your area are conducting a clinical trial for patients with PV. Study-related care will be provided. For more information, call 1-888-270-4854 or visit www.verifypv.com to see if you qualify.
It started. It's the side hug. Tween milestones like this may start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then, too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for others, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Welcome. Hi.
Now, as the dad cab, it's my cue to help protect them.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination.
Prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery as you do in store. So no matter how you shop, everyone saves big. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Next Weather is sponsored by Michigan Lottery's Fast Cash. Now introducing 2 new games, $5 Lucky Clover and $10 Double Win Wild Time.
A progressive jackpot that grows with every play. That's what makes Fast Cash from the Michigan Lottery such a thrilling game. The progressive jackpot keeps building and building and building until jackpot. Fast Cash, introducing new Double Win Wild Time and Lucky Clover.
Welcome back. President Biden has announced new measures aimed at helping communities across the U.S. deal with soaring temperatures.
The unprecedented heat this summer has been scorching the West and the South, and now it's expanding with parts of the Northeast bracing for extreme heat, humidity, and some storms.
Bradley Blackburn reports from New York.
With extreme temperatures threatening tens of millions of Americans, President Biden is taking action.
Help is here, and we're going to make it available to anyone who needs it.
The president is directing the U.S. Labor Department to ramp up protections for people working outside in the unrelenting heat.
The acting Secretary of Labor will work with her team to intensify enforcement, increasing inspections in high-risk industries like construction and agriculture.
Last week, a 25-year-old farm worker and father of 2 died in Yuma amid the record heat wave in Arizona.
It's really, really important for employers to think a little bit more deeply about the conditions and what they're asking people to do.
Firefighters in Minneapolis, Minnesota, trying to stay cool themselves, have been on high alert.
If it's someone that's really in need of help, then we're there.
Heat advisories and warnings are up along the East Coast, with temperatures here in New York City expected to feel like over 100 degrees.
It is essential that all New Yorkers stay cool.
City officials have opened cooling centers across the 5 boroughs and plan to keep public pools open an extra hour.
This is not our first heat wave. And with climate change accelerating, it won't be our last.
Climate experts project this July to be the hottest month ever recorded on the planet.
The era of global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived.
The United Nations is calling on global leaders to step up, warning the time for action is now. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
The White House says it's also working on improving weather forecasts and providing more accessible drinking water to Americans. Forecasters say Washington, D.C. could hit temperatures of 100 degrees or higher for the first time in 7 years in the coming days.
Well, It has been, hot around here the last couple days, but nothing quite like we're seeing around the country.
No, and the mid-80s that we've got right now, we've seen them before. We'll see them again tomorrow, making it to 90, and that one will obviously feel nasty. We've got a chance to make that heat index run toward 100, something that, again, we see each summer, but it's not a welcome guest. The good news is that we're hot, but we're not at that record-breaking level. The downside is that it does provide a lot of fuel for storms, again, for tomorrow. But we have one thing helping us out to try and mitigate it from being too widespread. It's almost too hot. That's going to be a thing that we have to look at there, because the way the whole line times out, it's an interesting setup with it. You got that 91 mark, you got the humidity, lows in the 70s tomorrow night, and the lows that are really quite mild there. Part of the reason the risk for strong to severe storms goes late tomorrow night into Saturday. So late, it's actually early. It's an interesting setup with that going into the weekend. Now for the end of it, sun, all the way through. Next week, perfect. A nice easygoing setup for us. But until then, we have this one last round, and that's what you see right here. We're already highlighted in the second category for potential strong to severe storms for southeast Michigan here. And you can see the expectation is basically to get this area over in Iowa to build into a larger complex of storms. We call it an MCS. That moves its way eastward and just moves along this corridor. And as it does, the hope is that it kind of dies down a little bit. But there are several pulses to it. Here's what you're looking at. We get into tomorrow morning. The storms that are going on in the western UP right now, by the way, are fierce. We've got more that stays away from us here tomorrow morning, but by the early afternoon right here, we get this one line that forms. And I like to use the analogy where that system moving south is that lit candle. You blow it out, it dies out. But just like a candle, you get that little wisp of smoke, and if you're quick, you can light it, and it relights the candle. Kind of a neat magic trick, but similar setup. This is the exhaust from that storm system, and it has a chance to kick back in early tomorrow afternoon, around noon to 2 at the latest. We'll see if that one happens, but this is the area moving in early Saturday morning. Now, it should punch the west side of the state, but by the time it makes it into our area here, the hope is that it's dying out, because now it's early on Saturday morning and a lot cooler, so we get a chance to kind of filter that away. We will have rain either way, a lot of it, so make sure again that if you have had a lot of rain already and you have a leaky basement issue, just bring stuff off the floor to avoid any issues tomorrow.
Why would you call anyone but the Mike Morse Law Firm? When I opened my firm, I promised to take cases of all sizes, give them all personal attention, not charge a dime unless we win, and not accept anything but the largest possible settlement. Over $1.5 billion later, that's what we've done. So why would you call anyone else? Really?
Romeo and Juliet, best in town with zero down.
Buy a new couch while sitting on your old one. Visit our new website, romeosfurniture.com, and shop thousands of items at the lowest prices right from home. No credit needed. Or come on in and try the furniture in-store before you buy at our 2 locations, DeQuinder and 12 Mile and 8 Mile in Van Dyke, with our newly added clearance center.
Romeo and Juliet, best in town with zero down. And same-day delivery.
Heard about Samasco Law through a couple friends I work with, and also I seen the advertisement on Facebook.
Ron needed an estate plan and a trust. At Samasco Law, we deal with these issues every day. Pat went to work for Ron.
When we arrived there, everything was on time. I think they're very friendly and thorough and knowledgeable. It's really enjoyable to work with Patrick. He's real friendly and outgoing. That really made us feel good about the decision we made to come to Samasco Law.
Introducing Catchy Comedy.
What's that?
A network celebrating the best in TV comedy.
Oh, that's big.
Featuring a who's who of funny women and TV legends.
It's the most unforgettable characters I ever met.
It's America's new front row to fun.
Catch me, catch me!
So catch all the laughs. Watch Catchy Comedy on Broadcast Channel 2.5 and Comcast 283 and 1186.
Catchy, huh?
Kind of catchy. This summer, happiness is a new Chevy. You can go farther, tow more.
I know it's up for me.
And bring along everyone you love. Your road to happiness begins in a new Chevy. Or GM employees with a current eligible lease can get this Equinox for $259 a month. Chevy drives the Motor City. Find new roads.
Welcome back. Groundskeepers at one of Kentucky's largest solar farms are employing a new kind of worker to help things look clean.
They're sheep. And they're proving more than nimble than modern landscaping. Jason Lindsay has the story.
I'm located at one of Kentucky's largest solar farms. It's located in Mercer County. More than 200 sheep help maintain this natural habitat growing under the solar panels.
What's crazy about it is the sheep do a better job because they're able to easily navigate under these panels, whereas it's difficult with somebody with a weed eater or a lawnmower.
Daniel Lowery, spokesperson with Kentucky Utilities, says this is the perfect partnership between KU and Shaker Village at Pleasant Hill, Kentucky.
A lot of thought and a lot of planning went into putting the sheep here at E.W. Brown.
We worked together to select 64 different native species that are sheep friendly. We knew would be beneficial to the habitat, but also provide proper nutrition for the sheep.
Michael Moore is the farm manager at Shaker Village at Pleasant Hill, Kentucky.
They do take their job very seriously, and they're very good at their job. They're able to maintain this site to a degree that is very close to what mechanical mowing would be.
It's also more affordable.
Proof that sheep can be the main driver behind management of these solar sites. Whether it's 50 acres or hundreds of acres, sheep are a viable solution to replace a very expensive means of mowing and weed eating sites like this.
Which is why other utility companies with solar panels are now adding sheep.
There's a job for everybody.
There is, and perhaps I'll have them over my house, cut the lawn, save on the landscaping bill.
Things.
Yeah, take care of some things. All right, well, CBS News Detroit continues coming up next at 6 o'clock.
And we're always streaming on the CBS News app and Pluto TV. Stay with us.
Of course, the GMC Terrain offers different drive modes. What about Weekend Warrior mode? Or you don't see that everyday mode? How about out of the office mode? Or even...
Are you out of your mind?
Mode. Want a mode for everything? GMC Terrain. GM employee program participants with a current eligible GMC lease can get this low mileage lease on this Terrain SLE for $239 per month.
Whoa! DraftKings. Look at all these blackjack games. You got Spanish 21, Vacation Blackjack, Touchdown Blackjack. What is this? Some big old Vegas buffet where you're putting the waffles next to the crab legs, deciding what dessert you want for breakfast? Well, guess what? Smack me in the mouth with all of it. I want it all.
New players can download the DraftKings Casino app and get a deposit match up to $100 in casino credit. Action's so good, why play anywhere else?
Somebody bring me the cream puffs.
Every leap forward starts with the same question. Can we? Can we use genetics to fight cancers? As in all of them? Can we be a world champion? Twice. My bad. 2-time world champion. Can we save a person's heart?
You know we can.
Okay, but can we do it from 500 miles away using robots?
Now you're talking.
Can we connect psychology, biology, and all the ologies to heal the whole person? We can. Corewell Health.
If you have heart disease and are on a statin, lowering cholesterol can be hard. Diets and exercise add to the struggle. Today, it's possible to go from struggle to cholesterol success with Leqvio. With a statin, Leqvio is proven to lower bad cholesterol by over 50% and keep it low with 2 doses a year. Common side effects were injection site reaction, joint pain, urinary tract infection, diarrhea, chest cold, pain in legs or arms, and shortness of breath. Ask your doctor about twice-yearly Leqvio. Lower, longer Leqvio.
With a TurboMax engine and a 13.4-inch diagonal touchscreen. Any truck can help you make a living. This one helps you build a life. Chevy Silverado.
Or GM employees with a current eligible lease can get this Silverado for $299 a month. Chevy drives the Motor City. Visit ChevyDetroit.com.
CBS News Detroit, streaming live now.